The elevator doors opened to the 40th floor,
Yeah, I'm
revealing
at
a
the office
sea
now.
of polished glass and restless footsteps.
What's the situation?
Mark Dalton's phone buzzed again. 4 missed calls, 3 texts from his assistant. The merger signing was minutes away. Years of sacrifice, late nights, and risk had led to this single morning in downtown Chicago. Across town, under the hum of fluorescent lights, Sofia Ramirez poured a cup of coffee behind the hospital's staff counter. The early shift hadn't started yet, but she was still here, too wired to sleep, too anxious to rest. Her husband's startup had gone bankrupt 6 months ago after Pierce Dynamics pulled out of a contract at the last minute. They'd lost everything: insurance, savings, even their home. Sofia had learned to live quietly. But fate doesn't knock. It breaks down the door. She was cleaning the staff lounge when 2 men in dark suits walked in, not realizing she was still there. They spoke in hushed tones, their voices sharp against the sterile air. "Pierce wants it done before 10, one said. "The transfer happens. Dalton's company folds within hours. No coming back from it." Sofia froze. Pierce? The same name from her husband's downfall. She stayed perfectly still, half hidden behind a supply cabinet. "Does he know?" the second man asked. "Not yet," the first replied. "That's the beauty of it. By the time Dalton signs, it's already over." Their laughter was low, cold. Then they left. Sofia's breath trembled. She looked at the clock. 9:42 a.m., 10 minutes until disaster. Her mind raced. She could stay silent and pretend she heard nothing. Or she could risk her job. Maybe her future, to warn a man she didn't even know. She looked down at her hospital badge, her trembling hands. What if this is how I make it right? She grabbed her phone, opened the hospital directory, and searched the name she'd just heard. Helios Innovations, CEO Mark Dalton. She found the company's public contact line and hit dial. "Helios corporate desk. How can I?" "Please listen," Sofia interrupted. "It's urgent. Someone's planning to sabotage your CEO, Mark Dalton. It's happening right now." The voice on the other end stiffened. "Who is this?" "It doesn't matter who I am. Just check your transfer logs before he signs. It's Graham Pierce." "He's lying to him." The line went silent. For a moment, Sofia thought she'd been hung up on. Then, "Wait," the voice said. "Say that name again." "Pierce," Sofia whispered. "He's about to ruin everything." Inside the conference room, Mark's smartwatch buzzed. Urgent voicemail. He opened it mid-meeting. "Check your transfer logs before you sign. Pierce is lying." Mark blinked, eyes narrowing. He excused himself from the table and stepped into the hallway, pulling up the live financial terminal. His pulse quickened. A hidden withdrawal had already begun under Pierce's signature. He stared through the glass wall at the man across the table, the man he'd trusted for years. The room suddenly felt colder. He wasn't just being betrayed. He was being erased. If this opening already has your heart racing, don't forget to subscribe and stay till the end, because what happens next will test the meaning of courage. Mark stood frozen in the hallway, the city skyline glimmering beyond the glass like a cruel illusion of success. His heart pounded against his chest as the realization sank in. Pierce had planned this for weeks. He straightened his suit jacket, forcing his composure back into place. Then, with deliberate calm, he re-entered the conference room. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice cool, "before we sign, there's one last thing I'd like to confirm." Pierce gave a smug smile. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Mark set his tablet on the table, tapped the screen, and projected the live transfer logs onto the display. The numbers told the story. A massive withdrawal of merger funds routed through an offshore shell company, timestamped just minutes ago. Pierce's grin stiffened. The lawyers in the room shifted uncomfortably. "What exactly am I looking at?" Pierce asked. "You tell me," Mark replied, "because it looks like you just gutted the deal." Pierce leaned back, masking panic behind arrogance. "Now, hold on. These are routine transfers." "Routine theft," Mark interrupted, his tone hardening. "You were about to collapse both companies to buy out the wreckage for pennies." The room fell silent except for the hum of the air conditioner. Pierce's eyes darted toward the door. Mark stepped closer. I trusted you, Graham. My employees trusted you. You nearly destroyed hundreds of lives. For what? Pierce didn't answer. He just adjusted his tie, muttered something about miscommunication, and walked out as the cameras clicked from nearby journalists, waiting for the press briefing that would never happen. Mark stood still, pulse still racing. He'd survived the attack, but a stranger had saved him. He turned toward his assistant. Trace that call. I want to know who made it. Across the city, Sofia sat in the staff lounge, staring at her phone. Her stomach churned with fear. She'd done the right thing, hadn't she? A knock echoed on the door. Her supervisor stepped in, flanked by hospital security. Sofia, he said carefully, we've received a complaint from Pierce Dynamics. They're accusing you of spreading false rumors during a live merger. They claim you violated corporate confidentiality. Her heart dropped. But I don't even work for them. I know, he said, sighing. But legal wants this handled immediately. I'm sorry, but we'll have to suspend you pending review. Her voice broke. Suspend me? For trying to stop something wrong.
I'm sorry.
Security escorted her out as nurses watched in silence. Her badge was deactivated before she even reached the parking lot. By the time she got home, the sun had begun to fade behind the skyline. Her husband, Evan, sat on the couch with a blanket wrapped around him. Another long day? He asked softly. Sofia forced a smile and nodded. She couldn't tell him, not yet. Meanwhile, at Helios headquarters, Mark's assistant returned. We found her, she said, handing him a paper. A nurse from Mercyview Hospital, Sofia Ramirez. Mark frowned. A nurse? Yes, sir. She saved your company. He exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the window. Then I owe her more than she'll ever realize. If you believe courage like this deserves to be seen, hit that like button. It helps more people discover stories that matter. 2 days passed before Mark finally reached the hospital. The news of the exposed merger had already gone viral. Headlines praised Helios Innovations for uncovering corporate fraud, while Pierce Dynamics began to crumble under investigation. But none of that mattered to Mark. He needed to meet the voice that had risked everything for a stranger. At Mercyview's front desk, the clerk frowned. Sofia Ramirez? She's no longer employed here. Termination notice was issued yesterday. Mark's chest tightened. Do you have a forwarding address? I'm sorry, sir. Confidential. He turned away, frustration and guilt burning in equal measure. Whoever she was, she had saved him and lost everything because of it. Across town, rain streaked across the narrow apartment windows of a crumbling building. Sofia sat at the small dining table, paperwork scattered across its surface. Termination letter. Overdue bills. Final notice from the power company. Evan leaned against the wall, pale but calm. We'll figure it out, he said softly. Her eyes glistened. I was just trying to do something right for once. Evan, and now it feels like the world's punishing me for it. He crossed to her, took her hands. You did the right thing. You saved someone's future. That has to mean something. A knock interrupted them. Sofia opened the door to find a tall man in a dark coat standing in the rain. Mrs. Ramirez? Her breath caught. She'd seen his face before, on the business news on billboards downtown. I'm Mark Dalton, he said gently. May I come in? For a long second, she didn't move. Then she stepped aside. The room was quiet except for the hum of the fridge. Mark glanced around. The cracked walls, the stack of medical bills on the counter, the tiredness in her eyes. You were the one who called, he said. You warned me. I just overheard something I couldn't ignore, she replied. You would have done the same. He smiled faintly. No, I wouldn't have risked my job for a stranger. Her shoulders dropped. Well, I did, and lost it. Mark's expression softened. Then maybe it's time someone helped you for a change. Evan stepped forward cautiously. You don't owe us anything, Mr. Dalton. I disagree, Mark said. I owe you both everything. He took an envelope from his coat and placed it on the table. Inside is a check to cover your medical expenses and living costs for the next year. No conditions, no favors. Just gratitude. Sofia blinked through tears. You don't have to. I know, Mark said quietly. But you did. And you reminded me that doing what's right still matters in this world. For a moment, the room held a silence that felt sacred. The storm outside eased, and the glow from the streetlights bled softly through the rain-streaked window. But peace never lasts long. Later that night, as Mark drove home, his phone buzzed with an anonymous text. You should have stayed quiet. This isn't over. He slowed, eyes narrowing at the reflection of city lights on his windshield. Pierce still had people on the inside. The storm was far from over. If this part had your heart beating a little faster, comment below. What would you have done in her place? Would you risk everything for the truth? Mark barely slept that night. The text replayed in his mind over and over. You should have stayed quiet. By morning, he had already called security, legal, and his head of IT. Every system was checked, every document sealed. But unease still lingered like a shadow that wouldn't leave the room. Meanwhile, Sofia and Evan tried to move on quietly. The relief from Mark's generosity lifted a weight off their shoulders. But fear still sat in the back of her mind. Every sound outside the apartment made her flinch. Every knock made her heart race. Then one evening, as she left a nearby pharmacy, a black SUV pulled up beside her. A man in a suit stepped out, Pierce's assistant. You caused a lot of trouble, he hissed. People lost millions because of your little phone call. Sofia froze, clutching her bag. I did what was right. He leaned in closer. Right doesn't pay bills. Stay silent if you know what's good for you. Before he could step closer, another voice echoed from behind. That's enough. Mark stood there, flanked by security. His tone was calm but sharp. You lay a hand on her again, and I'll make sure you're the one in court next. The man glared, then retreated into the SUV and drove off. Mark turned to Sofia. I'm sorry. You should never have had to face this. She shook her head, tears brimming. You've already done more than enough. No, he said quietly. Not yet. The next morning, Mark stood before a crowd of reporters in Helios headquarters. Cameras flashed as he stepped to the podium. 6 months ago, I almost signed a deal that would have destroyed this company, he began. But one person, someone outside this world of suits and power, chose courage over comfort. She risked everything to tell the truth. He paused, scanning the room. Her name is Sofia Ramirez. And today, I'm announcing the launch of the Ramirez Foundation, a fund dedicated to protecting whistleblowers and families affected by corporate corruption. Because integrity deserves more than silence. It deserves protection. Applause filled the room. Sofia watched the broadcast from her small living room, hand over her mouth, tears streaming freely. Evan smiled beside her, whispering, You see, you changed something bigger than us. Weeks later, Mark visited them again, not as a CEO, but as a friend. Evan had just been offered a position in Helios's new ethics division, overseeing transparency reforms. I'm not a hero, Mark, Sofia said quietly. He smiled. No, you're something rarer, you're good. They laughed softly, the kind of laughter that carried peace, not relief. As Mark left their apartment that evening, the sunset spilled golden light across the Chicago skyline. He stopped at the curb, breathing in the crisp air, the city alive again with purpose. In a world where silence is easy, courage still echoes loudest. And sometimes, the smallest act of bravery can change the direction of countless lives. If this story touched you, don't leave without showing some love. Hit the like button, comment what lesson stayed with you, and subscribe for more powerful stories about courage, kindness, and second chances.